I have with me today author Armida Espinoza, who's a first generation Mexican American and retired bilingual teacher whose writing reflects her real life experiences as an English language learner. Through her book series, Brave Lolis Learns English, she sheds light on the academic and emotional challenges millions of second language learners still face, offering encouragement and tools to help them navigate fear, insecurity, and the power of their inner voice. All right. Armida, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so glad to have you to talk about English as a second language. And I'm someone who learned English as a second language as well, growing up in the Middle East. I've been here in the US for 20 years now, so I still have that accent though, but anyway, that's a topic for another discussion. Armida, I think one of the things that really attracted me to your story is how, as a self-published author, is the fact that you sold 10,000 books. And honestly, this is huge for a self-published author. So I think the first question is, how did you manage to do that? What's your secret?
So there is no secret other than
Okay. Okay.
never having published a book and certainly never having to be responsible for marketing a book. I, of course, listened to a lot, did a lot of research and listened to everybody's experiences and then just kind of tried to shape it to something that worked for me. But I've got to say that right off the bat, I'm a retired educator and so is my husband.
Okay.
We live in Central California, which is has a large population of English learners.
Okay.
And so because of the relationships that both my husband and I have developed with educators and administrators, that I believe was like the opening door that cracked open for me. So I just pushed through that door. So just tapping into people that I knew and contacts that I had. But even with that said, principals are so busy that I still have a number of principals that are friends of mine that have not invited me to their school site because
Okay.
they're just so overwhelmed with everything, right? So I don't take it personal, but I just keep my head down and I just keep pushing and going in every which direction that lends itself to having me be able to speak about my book. So that really is the driving force behind it. It's like
Hmm.
nothing was off the table.
So you're saying that most of your sales came from in-person events at schools. Is that
Yes,
what you would say?
I
Okay.
focus on schools, and I focus on schools only because my first book, Brave Lollies Learns English, is about my experience as a second language learner, and that, of course, not only is it a very personal story to me, but it's also a very relevant story to thousands of children here, and quite frankly, close to millions here in the Central Valley. And so,
Hmm.
the subject of the book and was without a doubt of schools was the ideal location for me to go to.
And the majority of the kids who read the books, are they actually second language learner, English as a second language learners, or they're like native speakers, or a mix of both?
Well, thank you for asking that question because initially I wrote it for basically children that are learning a second language. However, as I've gotten into the schools and talking to students and now in servicing staff, teachers, and administrators, I came away with the realization that the main focus of the book is about changing our mindset whenever
Hmm.
we're being challenged. And as lifelong learners, we are always going to be challenged. We as adults know what to do with that negative mindset when it sets in, but children
Yeah.
don't know what to do with it. And that
Okay.
negative mindset will just pop in whenever a child is learning, whether they're learning a second language, whether they're learning math, whether they're learning how to read or write English and they're monolinguals. So it really has opened the doors to the book being more applicable to all children who are being challenged because their negative voice is talking to them and telling them to give up and not to try.
Oh, okay. So this is great. So you actually have two books, at least
Yes.
from what I understood. So your idea is to have a series, right? With the main character Lulis, Brave Luli, and you go through her journey through this series of book, or what do you have in mind?
So I have two books, and the second one, because the first one was around Loli's coming to understand the power of her own voice.
Hmm.
So the second book is Brave Loli's Box of Hope, and um, that came from in 2017. There was a hurricane that hit Puerto Rico,
Okay.
and that I remember one evening coming home and I was surfing, channel surfing, and I came across the news and it was talking about all the devastation that had occurred in Puerto Rico by the hurricane. And this anchor woman was, of course, showing all the devastation, and she was putting out the call, the SOS call, please send donations and things of that nature. And then she interviewed this little old man. And there was this little old man. When she interviewed him, she asked him what brought him to that area because he didn't seem to have been impacted by the hurricane. He was just
Okay.
coming through. And so he said he was telling her that he lived on the other side of the mountain where the hurricane did not hit. And and he heard about the hurricane and all the damage. And he found that he had an extra bag of grain. So he mounted it on his donkey, tracked over the mountain, and came down to donate the bag of grain.
Hmm. So
Well,
cute.
I was in tears. I was in tears as I was listening to this anchor woman interview this little old man who had nothing other than a bag of grain that he could donate. And so the next story, Brave Loli's Box of Hope, is Lolis is watching the news with her parents and she wants to do something. And
Hmm.
she kind of puts it out to the universe, how can I help? And so I'm not going to tell you the story, but she finds a way to help.
Huh. So what gave you the idea to actually write a children's book after being a teacher? Did you always want to write a book, or what was kind of the spark that created this in you?
Well, I got to tell you, that was never on the radar. Never.
Okay.
The reason why is because as a second language learner, always struggled academically.
Okay.
First generation. And so academics were really difficult for me. And when I retired, um, I just assumed I've always loved to write, but I assumed that I was going to be writing, just kind of hide myself in my little room and just write my little heart away because I never shared my writings with anybody, with the exception of
Okay.
my husband. Because
Okay.
of course, after 40 something years of marriage, he was a safe place. And but I ended up thinking to myself about taking a children's writing class because I'd never taken any. So it was during COVID. I signed up for a children's writing class, and one thing led to another, and they encouraged me to write and publish my story. And so I recall this experience that I had in first grade where the teacher was testing me on my ABCs in my alphabet, and I got stuck on the letter G. And the shame and the embarrassment that I felt paralyzed me. And so I thought to myself, oh my goodness, there's still so many children struggling with the same issue, listening to their
Hmm.
next mind, which is what I did. And so that's where the story came from. It was a personal experience, and I knew that it was still very applicable to so many children in our area.
Hmm. So are you Lolly in the book? Do you feel like
I
you
am.
are
I
you are
am.
Lolly?
Yes, I
Okay.
am. Yeah,
Okay.
of course, my personal story didn't end as sweet as hers did, right? Because it was a children's story. I had to wrap it up, and it had to be a nice happy ending, right? My personal journey and struggles, when I got stuck at G, and the embarrassment and the shame that I felt because I thought I was the only one in the world that didn't know my ABCs. It was a new teacher in a new school. I didn't know any kids, and I just I just thought to myself, well, how am I going to get through first grade without letting the teacher know that there's more stuff that I don't know? So there
Hmm.
was this little voice that popped into my head, and the little voice said to me, don't ask questions, put your head down, just do the best that you can with what you have on your own. And don't ask questions, because if I was asking questions, then they were going to know that that there was more stuff that I didn't know, right? That I wasn't smart.
Hmm.
I did that. Bad call. Bad idea. That was not a good advice, because by the end of first grade, I was academically behind. So, of course, in second grade, I stayed in this little circle, a little world that I created with just doing the best that I could. I stayed there through high school, and academically, I graduated probably reading about a third or fourth grade level,
Oh,
and
wow.
not sharing with anybody, just doing the best that I could. I got C's. Um, the question came up once. They asked, "Did you ever cheat?" And I said, "Of course I cheated."
Oh,
I was in
wow.
I was in survival mode.
So, at what age did you come to the US?
So I was born here. I was
Ah, okay.
my parents were from Mexico, but I was born here in the United States. So I'm first generation. But my parents didn't have any educational background. We
Okay.
were
So you only
we
spoke
were
in Spanish.
Yes, we only spoke Spanish at home, and so economically we were, low income, and so we didn't have any books at home. So there was a really disconnect between my home environment and school. In school, I was on my own to survive, figure it out, and then I'd go home, and that was a whole nother world, right? So yeah, it wasn't until my 20s that I came to the realization how much my own self negative talk had been hurting me and holding me back. So
Mm.
that wasn't until my 20s.
And what did you do, like when you
So, yeah,
understood this part?
yeah,
Yeah.
so luckily for me, I had a boyfriend in high school
Okay.
became my husband. He was fourth generation. So his
Mm.
exposure academically was completely different from mine.
Okay.
And so um, I remember, and he was 1 year older than me. So in
Okay.
his senior year, when he was getting ready to go to college, he asked me if I would like to go with him.
Did I lose you? Hello. I think you're frozen.